Yo, come on, come all, nothing but love, nothing but respect. You know what we do, what we don't, what we is, what we isn't, and what we is here today talking One Piece. More specifically, today I will be elaborating on a theory about Blackbeard, alright? And more specifically, what Blackbeard's plans are currently in the story, and what I think his ultimate goal will be going forward in the story, alright? Now, that being said, this is only a theory. It doesn't necessarily mean I believe 100% that this will happen, but it is a potential that I can see on the horizon for the story, okay? So, before we get into the speculative part of this theory, I'd just like to take a step back and talk about Blackbeard throughout the series and sort of lean into the parallels between what we've seen from him so far and where I see him going further in the story. Okay? And so we cut to the beginning of Blackbeard's introduction in Jaya, where he meets the Straw Hats for the first time. We'd already known at that point that Ace was after him, and we see that Blackbeard is very similar to Luffy in a lot of ways, alright? And so from there, as we continue through the story, while we get Luffy's story unraveling, we also get the tale of Blackbeard unraveling. His conflict with Ace, his rise into the position of a warlord, from the rise into the warlord position, his betrayal to the Marines, his acquisition of a crew in Impel Down, and then to his ultimate second betrayal of Whitebeard and claiming his fruit. And so during the first half of the story, Blackbeard was very clearly a planner, but also someone that was whimsical. He was someone that moved on the wind. He was very happy to just go with the flow, but at the same time, he was hyper focused in his plan and the way he was going to achieve it. He relies heavily on luck and fate, but is also someone that is a meticulous planner. And so, the first half of the story is about the Blackbeard pirates, their betrayal, and their eventual clash and versing with the Whitebeard pirates, which eventually came to head in the Payback War during the time skip. Okay? And so from there, Blackbeard's story with the Whitebeard pirates has sort of been placed down and hasn't really been touched on. We have seen parts and aspects of Marco since that part in the story, but we haven't really focused on Blackbeard and his perception of the Whitebeard pirates since then. Instead, we pick up Blackbeard's new storyline, his post-time skip storyline. And so during the events of the post-time skip, much like in the pre-time skip, Blackbeard has had an integral story connected with another major figure of the story. Instead of Whitebeard as it was pre-time skip, post-time skip, the Blackbeard story is very heavily linked and related to Dragon and the Revolutionary Armies. This comes from Burgess and Sabo, the two right-hand men of either organization clashing in Dressrosa, to the inevitable invasion of the Revolutionary Army's base from Blackbeard. And then we get to the point that we are in the story where nothing sort of accumulated or nothing sort of taken another step since their first two altercations in the story. Now, this is where we go from taking a retrospective look at what's happened in the story to start theorizing about what's going to happen in the story. And where I'd like to think, and I'd like to actually address the idea that as of chapter 956, we get two major things happen in that chapter relating to these individuals in Blackbeard and the Revolutionary Armies. We get the news that something has happened to Sabo, and we get more specifically news that Blackbeard is on the move. He has a specific agenda, and the exact quote that Blackbeard says, according to the official Viz translation, is, "Pack your bags onto the ship. If the Navy's only going to take it, I might as well claim the prize." Now, when this first came out, a lot of people speculated, including myself, that this was most likely to do with one of the warlords of the sea. My money was betting on Edward Weevil, seeing as how Blackbeard's story pre-time skip relied heavily on dismantling Whitebeard's legacy and stealing parts of his legacy to attain his own power. However, this line of thinking may have shifted somewhat. The reason for is taking a step back and looking at the series. You have part A of the story, which is the first half, part B of the story, which is the second half. And so I know it is a very popular theory at this point in time that Blackbeard will take Kaido's Devil Fruit and have the strongest Logia, the strongest Paramecia, and the strongest Zone. This theory that I'm proposing is essentially to just say, what if Blackbeard is going after the strongest zone, or the strongest zone for him? I know in the past people have thought of Kaido or Marco. These are two excellent fruits that would definitely help Blackbeard. But does it fit narratively with where Blackbeard has been set up and where Blackbeard has been aimed in the post-time skip? No, to me personally it doesn't. What I sort of see as being a potential plot line for Blackbeard is the very same plot line that we had pre-time skip, just changing the figures around a little bit, okay? So cutting back to the news that we got in chapter 956, from the Revolutionaries' perspective, we have something about Sabo. Most likely Sabo has been blamed for the murder of Cobra Nefertari, and so at this point in time, Sabo is most likely captured. We don't know about the rest of the Revolutionary Army, but in terms of Sabo himself, there is news that is making everyone that knows Sabo be very anxious, sad, and cry, okay? Most likely, this is meant to parallel Ace's story from the pre-time skip. It's not a new theory that Sabo has been captured. I know there's a lot of contention whether or not this would be good storytelling or bad storytelling, but there is the potential that while we are in Wano, events are unraveling for the rest of the world that is setting up a Marineford scenario without the Straw Hats being involved, or the Straw Hats being involved in their own version of a Marineford. Having two of these sort of pinnacle junctions in the story that will shift the end game of the series, okay? And so I would like to propose the idea, essentially, that if this newspaper's article is that Sabo has been captured, has been blamed for the death of Cobra, and is going to be executed, and so Dragon, as he says here, our first step is to ascertain the truth, okay? Dragon most likely will not leave Sabo to die. The revolutionaries will act. This could be the Marines' way of baiting the revolutionaries out of hiding and into a major conflict, just like they did with Whitebeard in the pre-time skip era, okay? We know that Akainu has some form of grudge against Dragon in some capacity, so it does make narrative sense from that standpoint. That being said, we cut over to Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard is someone who not necessarily breaks the fourth wall, but has always understood the world of One Piece in a very intricate manner, past what we know, okay? And so I would like to propose the idea, essentially, that Blackbeard here isn't going after Sabo's Devil Fruit, but has read and is interpreting that Sabo will be executed as a way to actually draw Dragon out, much like Whitebeard did in the pre-time skip, and then do the same thing that he did against Whitebeard to Dragon. Have the Marines clash against the Revolutionary Army, and then have Blackbeard come in at the 11th hour and steal Dragon's Devil Fruit, okay? There are a lot of theories out there that Dragon has the mythical Thunderbird theory. The mythical Thunderbird from Native American mythology and the likes of that. Now, I don't necessarily know what Dragon's Devil Fruit would be, but in terms of Oda's writing, the Devil Fruits that he gives Blackbeard are both known and also very obscure. He shows a little bit of them to get you a little bit hyped for it, but he also hides the majority of what these abilities can do so that he can make Blackbeard still interesting when he fights. At this point in time in Wano, it doesn't make sense to me to give Blackbeard the Dragon Fruit, and having known everything that the Dragon Fruit is capable of, recycling that into a villain that will have pretty close after as a major rival. Alternatively, if you have someone like Dragon, who's currently the world's most wanted man, so you know he has a level of prestige somewhat equal to the Yonko in terms of threat level to the world government, and possibly in terms of combative ability, okay? If you take someone that has been built up like Dragon and give his fruit to Blackbeard, not only do you give Luffy and the Straw Hats another reason to get into serious altercation and to take the fight against Blackbeard more personally, but you also give the Blackbeard the ability to have another busted fruit, another high tier top level fruit, without it necessarily being a rehash of things we've already seen. And this also keeps it interesting. If the events of this start to unravel when we get into Act 4 and 5 of Wano, this would make two wars happening side by side a lot more interesting. Almost as if you could say, or almost look at the intermissions of Wano as being their own 5-act play structure as well, building up into their own climax, okay? We had at the beginning of Wano the Reverie, which was essentially the introduction of all the events that would be happening outside of Wano. Then we had the first intermission, which introduced Blackbeard's bounty and explained a little bit more on the conflict between the admirals and the revolutionary armies. Then we had the third intermission, which is this one where we had Blackbeard being on the move. We had the revelation of all the Yonko bounties, and we also had essentially the knowledge that the Marines are tied up with the Warlords, but they also have the new SSG secret weapon, something that they believe completely negates the need for the Warlords. And so it would be very interesting to parallel Whitebeard and Dragon in this sense, and have Whitebeard and Dragon in this sense, and have Blackbeard steal both of their fruits. And from the Marines' perspective, it be an example that they're trying to set to the world, but sort of failing at the same point in time and repeating the same mistakes. In the event of the Whitebeard, you had the world government releasing or showcasing the use of the pacifistas for the first time, and the pacifistas essentially decimating large forces of the Whitebeard pirates' fleet. But ultimately, the Marines still failed when Blackbeard gained Whitebeard's fruit. Then, in the new storyline, it would be the revolutionary armies invade to save Sabo. The SSG weapons are used to then try and deal critical blows to the Revolutionary Army, resulting in Blackbeard coming in and with a weakened dragon being able to take his devil fruit and thus completing his trio of 3 fruits. The strongest Logia, strongest Paramecia, and potentially the strongest Zone, depending on what Dragon's ability is, okay? Now, again, this is just a theory. This isn't necessarily what I think is going to play out, but it was a very interesting way to view the events of what's happening, and for me to actually see how another spin on how chapter 956 actually played off these events. Because if you look back at them now, after we've had more than 50 chapters now since this last intermission, you can almost see with the way that the story's going, we're getting a parallel where we have 5 Supernova versus Kaido and Big Mom, and then on the other side, we had 4 revolutionaries and potentially Bonnie versus 2 admirals. Both of these events may somewhat fail, leading to a bigger war or a bigger conflict on either side, resulting in the 2 winners, or 3 winners, essentially, however you want to view it, of these altercations coming out for the final conflict of the series. It's sort of the last step before the throne war reaches its climax. That being said, if you like this theory or don't like this theory, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the possibility of Blackbeard taking out Dragon and getting his fruit. See, the problem is we haven't seen anything of Dragon, really, so it'd be a bit of a letdown to not see him fight. But that being said, if we do get a little bit of a cutaway between Act 3 and 4, or between Act 4 and 5 of Wano, and actually see a bit of this conflict unraveling, and we have the likes of Dragon fulfilling the role of Whitebeard from Marineford pre-time skip in the post-time skip, we do see a little bit of his abilities beforehand, leading into a lot more of a crucial changing point for the story when Blackbeard gets that fruit, if this is how you view it happening, alright? It definitely would make for a an Odor-esque subversion tactic to be able to, really pull the rug out from under us, but also have all the information dangling there right in front of us, and just no one really had seen it or noticed it to pick up on it. So, like I said, if you agree with this theory or disagree with this theory, let me know in the comment section down below. Tell me what your thoughts are. Let me know what your spin on it is. If you think this theory gave you some idea of what could happen, but you think my spin on it's just a little bit off to what would actually happen if this is to play out, alright? And do you know what else you can do? You can like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for more notifications for content like this, theories like this, for live reactions, anything you want, alright? It is really appreciated. And until the next video, peace, have a good one, and enjoy One Piece, and enjoy the long solace until Blackbeard finally does make his move and becomes the true monster that we all know he will be. Goodbye.